streeter, Flynn McClure.
Yeah.
So I don't know you. I've never met you, but I feel like I have, because in Denver and on the Front Range, you're a big deal. You've got your vodka, Streeter Flynn Vodka. You have a digital safe company, and you wrote a cookbook, The Single Man's Guide to Cooking with Beer. And I don't, drink beer. I don't cook, and I don't drink vodka. So I'm definitely not your target audience. But you are a big deal around here because you are a homegrown entrepreneur, and you are celebrated here in Denver. And I just wanted to take, some time to learn about your journey. Talk to me about you and how you got started as an entrepreneur.
So I went from Wichita, Kansas. And I went to East High School, graduated there, and at 18 moved to Norman, Oklahoma, where I went to the University of Oklahoma. And I got a business degree. The best part about that was I went to the business school and I said, I want a business degree, but I'm not strong at math. I'm strong at talking. What's the easiest degree they have? And I remember they looked at me like, what do you mean? I go, what's got the least amount of math? And she was like, either marketing or management. I go, but what's really got the least? She's like, management. I go, management, please. I'll take that. So I went to the University of Oklahoma, and then I moved to Santa Fe for a year where I bartended and ski instructed and just kind of took a year off because I was in college for 6 years. So I really sucked the marrow out of the bone of OU. really got my fill.
And just with your undergraduate, this is not.
No, I'm not a doctor.
Well, you know what?
Or a lawyer yet.
Everything in its own good time.
Yeah, and I had a friend who lived in Denver, and she's like, "You ought to come check this out. Like, you're not going to be in Santa Fe forever. This is just it's a moment in time." So I would drive up. And come skiing, or like for a year, like that year when I had time off, I would come to Denver, and I took a job selling software, and I was selling software for this company down in the DTC back when, like, the original DTC, like, it was like 6 buildings.
Yeah.
And I was, I kid you not, this is funny. I worked there a week. And I was like, at the end of the week, I called my dad and I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on. And I said, I just don't feel like this is right for me. Like, I don't know.
Was it a corporate environment?
Yeah, it was a corporate. Yeah,
okay.
Go out and do sales.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, talking to people is not my problem, but it was just like selling software, very regimented. Get up, and hit these accounts and try to sell them, accounting software.
Did you feel like a caged animal in a corporate environment?
Well, yeah, but it's funny. Like, I just was like, I didn't feel right. Didn't feel right at all. I was
isn't that interesting?
I just was like, I said, And so I remember I called my dad and I was like, I think I'm gonna let this one go. And he's like, well, he goes, give it a chance. I go, no. He goes, well, I'll tell you something. He goes, I know you. I go, that's just a true story. He goes, you're never gonna make it in an office. He said this, like, and he wasn't being mean. He was just like, and I got what he meant. He was just like, I know you got a lot going on, and some things are for some people, and some things are for others. You need to go, cut your own road, cut your own rug, whatever it's called. And he said, he goes, they're either going to fire you or you're going to fire them.
Yeah.
He goes, because you're not going to make it in the corporate world. And I was like, kind of insulted because I got a business degree. But at the same time, I was like,
Was that a defining moment for you? Was that like a turning point to what? Because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, like, you have to go out and learn business by working in the court. Like, for some of us, myself included, working in an office is a way to stop the creative process, right? And I've just was that a turn? Like, is that the thing where you're like, well, I'm gonna be my own boss. I'm gonna do my own deal.
No. Yes, no.
Oh.
It's funny because I was like, okay, I don't want that kind of job, and I bartended in college, and so I ended up bartending over at Piatti's in Cherry Creek.
Okay.
And I remember kind of being embarrassed because my friends from college all had gone down to Dallas. They had jobs for, all these large companies, Oracle and all these jobs. And that's when it kind of started. Like, I knew I didn't want to do the corporate job, but I knew I didn't want to bartend because you can get sucked into that life. And
oh, yeah.
What's funny is Piatti's closed last year. I could still go in there last year, and I knew 5 people still worked there. And it had been 20 years. Like I'm telling you, that lifestyle, that whole like you can if you get locked into
it's a culture, right?
It's a culture.
It's like a subculture, like it's its own community, right? Like I've heard people say
you can't
that,
break loose.
But you can't. It's like the mob,
the
right?
fact that I broke out, like even they would say like it's funny. So I went from serving booze at that bar to putting my booze on the shelf.
Yeah.
Like I had never been prouder. My manager, she's like, Streeter, she goes, I fired you like 6 times. I go, she goes, I know. And she goes, do you remember what you did? I go, yeah. She goes, you just took other people's hours. She goes, I knew I couldn't get rid of you then. And it was funny because I not only, worked at Piatti's, I came back, I did their security monitoring. We'll get into that, but I did their security monitoring. I did their fire monitoring.
So was this the thing that led to the digital?
Yes and no. My dad sent me an article about this guy who in Kansas who would digitally document people's estates. And he said, this is interesting just because like you live in Colorado, and this is when we were having tons of fires. This is like 2000 when there were just fire after fire. I know we'll get to that in a second because you know so well about it. So I started this company called Digital Safe, and we would go out to people's homes and we would document. This is when I'm not even sure if I had a cell phone, in 2000, but I wanted one. But I don't know.
A flip phone?
You think I'm kidding? But now I document everything. People go, "What are you doing?" I don't even answer. I just go click and I send that to them.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I spent like $800. I borrowed some money from my dad, and I had a digital camera. It had a disc in the back. We take the disc, and so what would happen is I would document, basically take pictures of everything that people had.
Like contents.
Everything. I mean, down to the flatware. I mean, think about it because you lost your house.
Yep.
Think about this. We would really document it, and then we'd document all titles and all that stuff. Just because if you come home and your house is gone, you had a couch.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the stuff in the drawers. We would open drawers, click.
Yep.
Everything you had. So we would get 900 pictures, and I'd sell you the disc. And so insurance companies would recommend us, and it was actually pretty busy for a while there because if you remember in 2000, there was just a fire. I mean, these huge fires every other week.
Yep.
So I did that, but it was just kind of feast or famine. That might come back up, feast or famine, many times in this story because if you're an entrepreneur, you have great moments and you have low moments.
It is so true. And I think your story, once we get along the journey, you are feast or famine. You, in my opinion, you capture that essence of the very, very high highs and the painful low lows, right? But you keep rising up, so keep going with your journey.
Listen, there have been many days where I just honestly, I'm like, man, I'm working so hard.
It's hard.
I'm working so hard, and you almost get to tears. You're just like, but then you're like, well, I'm doing my thing. And here's the thing, and again, just I tell people this all the time, and I really mean this, and I mean this to my core. I don't want to be rich. I want to be successful.
What does that mean? What is success if it's not money?
I have enough money. I can go if I want to go to Shanahan's, but I got enough money if I want to go to Chipotle. I pay my bills. I get to sock a little bit away for here and there. I get to start new projects, but you sometimes, like I said, these things hit, and sometimes they quit.
Yeah, I think that just on that topic of because a lot of people get into entrepreneurship and startups for the money, right? The exit, the end game. Mm-hmm. Every time in my career I have ever chased money, I have been unhappy, right? Because it is an empty kind of exercise to just chase after the money. When you have purpose, right, which I think is what you're talking about, right? Every day you have a purpose. Mm-hmm. You got to keep the lights on. You've got to keep the vodka on. You got to go out there and do your organic and Gladiator sales, which is something we'll get to. Yeah, no, I think that is so appreciative.
So I'm going to get past all the digital safe stuff. Okay, so I'm doing this digital safe for these insurance companies, and it's going fine. I mean, I'm not buying a new car.
Right.
But I'm affording haircuts, and
but not today. Clearly, no.
This was just I go. I'm on a film. I hope my hair's really jacked up, so she thinks I'm wicked cool. But this is just I quit. Okay, so I went home. No. I went home to see my mom and dad, and he goes, "Hey, I want to show you something. It might work in your business because you got digital safe. You're doing the insurance thing. Maybe this is a product that will roll." And I said, "Okay." And we go in his closet, and he opens, he pulls back his clothing, and there's a wall safe. And he's like, look at this. And I was like, yeah. I go, that's awesome. And it had like a key, and he opened it, and it was flat. And he goes, you know what I don't understand? Because it was like the size of a high-top sneaker box,
Right.
And he was like, you know what's strange about this? And I go, what? He goes, well, there's no shelves. He goes, so I have all this space, but everything is just like your mom's jewelry and watches, everything's in the bottom.
Yeah.
And he said, I think that people who buy wall safes have money, and they need shelves and stuff, hooks and whatnot. And I was like, I don't know why it stuck. He goes, but maybe you could do something with that idea. And I was like, I go, let me play with it. I ended up kind of like this. You'll learn this about me as we go on. Like things like get in my mind, and I'm like, and I won't be able to stop thinking about them until I do something about it. So I went back and I was like, because I wanted also a tangible product of my own, and the idea of like doing these discs, for the insurance companies was fine and dandy, but I mean, I was out taking pictures of people's shit.
Right.
This, I went back and ordered a bunch of wall safes. Like they were all like 100, 200, and I was like, And I found one I really liked. I called the company. I was like, hey, I like this. You got anything else? They're like, we have this one that we used to use, but we're not really using anymore. And I said, could I license that from you? Could we still make it? He goes, yeah, it's probably, you have to buy a lot of them. So I ended up buying his wall safes, and we take them kind of like Pimp My Ride.
Right.
So we take it and we line it with felt. We put lighting systems in it.
Oh, no way.
Oh, and
disco
jewelry
ball,
trays
like
and
a little
shelves.
disco
Ball, and there's little people in there dancing. And on the door, I redesigned their door and had a plastic come. And we had places for passports.
No way.
So I go into Hyde Park, and I like, I'm lucky in Denver because working at, that's where it started. Working at Piatti's. That was a hot spot for a hot moment.
Yeah.
And so I knew everybody, and I met with the owners, and they're top order guys, Michael Pollock and Stephen Rosedale. Love those guys. They go, okay, but you have to go put them in. I'm like, it's kind of like when an actor, you go, you know how to ride a horse? They're like, yes.
Right.
I go, no problem. I go, if you put me on your wall at Hyde Park and you give me, validate me, and people buy them, I will go put them in. Okay, I have no construction degree. I grew up, I know how to use a hammer, but my first job, I went out for Hyde Park and put a wall safe in somebody's wall. So I don't know what I'm doing. So I tarp the bottom, and I started cutting. I cut a hole, and it wasn't big enough. I cut another hole, and big enough. And then there was a board, and there was a wire, and I'm like, so I called in my buddy who's an electrician. We rewired the wall, and I had to take the board out. I broke through the other side of the wall. My
Did you have someone with you, or were you?
No, I was by myself. And then I called my friend. I said, "Could you come down and help me rewire this?" And then I was like, thank God this first job was like for somebody I knew, and he knew that I just didn't know what I was doing. I have now installed like 4,000 wall safes.
Wow.
I've installed so many wall safes. I've built so many because it's fun. It's an easy job. We even to get off the wall safes, we just now we have wall safes with hidden compartments.
Right.
I have a hidden compartment that one of my clients called me and goes, FBI broke in. I go, who is this? He goes, the FBI broke in. And he goes, I just wanted to call you. I go, I don't know you. He goes, yeah. He goes, my wife was, she got in trouble. And so they came over, and there's ill-gotten gains. They made me open the safe. And I was like, yeah, okay. Still kind of like, what are we talking about? He goes, I was pretty upset. I go, yeah. Well, the FBI knocked on your door. I bet you were.
Yeah.
And he was like, so they made me open the safe, and they took $10,000 from me. And I go, okay, I go, good talk.
The FBI took $10,000
out of the safe, and he goes, I went back in there, I flipped it open, and there it was. And he goes, I just called to let you know that the FBI didn't even find your hidden compartment.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, that kind of gives you a high, because that's our product.
Right.
We had taken a standard product, and then we started adding on to it. And then I just took their design, and I just made bigger and bigger wall safes, because my clients were all rich. And every time I'd sell them a wall safe, they're like, this is great, but I need something bigger. So I make this diamond wall safe, 36 inches long, huge shelves, lighting, mirrors, the little people dancing, the hidden compartment. We sell tons of that. So I went from doing the insurance, like documentation, to wall safes. And then I'm out of these people's homes. Oh, I was at Champ Bailey's house. Champ Bailey used to be a football player for the Broncos. Right. And he's like, hey, turn this on. I go, turn what on? He goes, the alarm. He goes, you do the safe, right? I go, yeah. He goes, do the alarm. And I go, I don't sell siding. I don't sell alarm systems. Remember I said this, okay? Because Champ and I, we run into each other. So, again, a couple times. So, I looked at him and I go, Champ, I sell premium high-end wall safes and install them. I'm at your house. I go, I'm not going to turn I don't know anything about alarms. He goes, you should. I go, why? He goes, I don't know. He goes, you got to get paid every month. And I go, all right. And I was like, And he said, you need to turn this on or figure it out. And I go, I don't know anything about it. I go, in my mind, that was like selling siding or
Right, just something totally outside of the.
No, just like low brow shit.
Yeah, low brow.
Like
yeah.
it's just like like the hustlers do it. It gets you on a contract. Okay, so I went home, and like we talked about feast or famine. Like my phone got cut off, and I was like, or I just didn't pay it, or I forgot to pay it, whatever. But I still remember. I remember this. I remember, man, what power 4 or 5 companies have. Water can shut you off. Your cell phone can shut you off. Excel can shut you off.
Yeah, utilities. Yep.
Yeah. You know where some serious money is? Those people. So I was like, wait a minute, this alarm business, people pay for their alarms because they want them.
Right.
They want security.
Right.
And I remember thinking about that, and I was like, huh. And so I got into the alarm business. So I actually called 3 of the competitors in Denver, had them come over and walk my house. And I kept their contracts, and I sent her all 3 copies, and I said, take these 3, find the differences and combine them and get me a really good contract. And then I looked up monitoring, and I found a monitoring company, and I started with one account, and the first one didn't go so well. Now I've got like 500 accounts.
Wow.
And they all bill at like, $40 a month. And so it's called a residual income.
Yeah, it's just recurring. Yeah.
And it allows me to do the things that I want to do. That's not like, holy cow, I'm not shopping for a plane. I'm just like...
But is that what got you to, like, okay, so let's talk about the vodka journey.
Okay,
you did the cookbook
I'm going right in.
first.
Yeah, okay, so then right in. Okay, so I did all that, and all of a sudden I had a bunch of alarms. Okay, so then I can't remember what it was, but my mom passed away, and I remember telling her, my parents cut me off on like my 5th or 6th year in college. And so, at some point you got to.
Yeah, I don't take it personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, but I remember when they cut me off, I had like no money. That's another story. But I remember I just made a lot of crock pot meals. And I was really good at that. So I'd always like write these recipes down and, like this and this and this. And I told my mom, I said, don't tell your mom that you're going to do something because she'll grind you. I told her I was going to do this cookbook. And even like when she passed away from cancer. And she's like, when we were still talking, she's like, I really want you to finish that cookbook. And I'm like, yeah. So then I just like, one day I'm like, I hadn't done it. She passed away and it had been a couple of years. And I was like, I got to do it. I sit down. So then I sat down and I just started working on my recipes, and you got to fine tune them. And I was able to cobble together a cookbook, and I just self-published it. And this company called Phoenix Publishing, like somehow came across it, and they called me out of LA, and they said, "Hey, what's the deal with the cookbook?" I go, "I'm just self-publishing, and I'm selling it online." They're like, "We'll sign you." I go, "Really?" And they said, "Will you write us 2 more?" I said, yeah. They go, well, right, you check for $10,000, a signing bonus. Hey, first of all, a bartender, an insurance documentation guy, build wall safes in my garage. I have an alarm company that's kind of fledgling, but we're starting to stack accounts. And all of a sudden, somebody goes, I'll write you a check for $10,000, but we it's our book now. We want you. This is what I'm learning about the businesses I'm in is people want me and the product because I bring something to the product. Yeah. So next thing I know, they fly me out to LA and they're like, listen, we're going to go. We ended up taking pictures. They took me out to like Quincy Jones, like his property, and then we did some pictures out there for the cookbook. And we ended up selling like 4,000 or 5,000 copies. And that was back when like the cooking shows were just taking off. And they're like, do you want to do a cooking show? I was like, yeah, I do. And they said, we can make it work. I go, I don't know what I'm doing. They go, that's what all this shit is. That's what all this action's for. We'll take your personality. And I was like, okay. Like we were in the mix of that. I was starting to write Cooking with Wine. And I got a call from, I guess my agent. And he said, hey, he goes, Phoenix Publishing got sold to Trimark or something. And I said, oh. And I started sweating. I go, oh. And he goes, how's that second book coming? I go, ooh, good. I go, real good. And he goes, well, I got to let you know. He goes, like, they're not re-upping any. They're letting the division of cookbooks go. And I said, I swear to God, I go, they don't want that money back, do they? He laughed. He goes, no. And I go, okay, good talk.
That book, like I know it's been out there since 2007.
I know it's like 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Let's call it 10 plus.
But it's beloved. Right? Like when you go
sell them.
like people love this, the single man's guide to cooking with beer. I mean, who knew? Like,
There's a liquor store. that I went in and I was signing bottles, like at it's called Bottle Shop 33, in Wash Park Grill. And I looked over and I was like, and I went over the shelf. There were 10 copies, all signed by me. And I was like, they go, well, yeah, we sell those. And I go, I must have dropped these off 5, 6, 7 years ago. But it's funny. I still sell on Amazon. We still sell a couple of copies a month.
Yeah, I read the reviews, and it's just
fun.
Yeah, people are charmed by the idea of it, and it's beautiful. It's very eye candy kind of book.
Oh yeah, it's fun, simple, not too big, and I wanted to keep it like, for guys like my brother, or guys that are just coming out of college, or like that just want to like be able to cook some basic stuff.
Yeah.
This is not fine dining, or this is not what you cook for your date.
Right.
But everybody who like is just like a mom who wants just to throw together something. Again, a lot of crock pot recipes.
Yeah.
My one beer chili
Yeah.
is so good. I mean, I still cook it. I've got it memorized. I can do a one beer chili like you've never seen. Okay, so did the cookbook. That's when I realized something. So I had the cookbook and the beer fest. Denver's beer fest is the biggest in the world.
It's huge.
Called up and said, hey, what do you think about you bringing some books down, and we'll give you a corner. And the corner space is big, and you can sign books, and you can sell them. And I said, how much? Because the booths are like $5-10,000. They said, no. We like what we see. We want your action. Come down. You get to sign the books. You get to sell them for $20. Keep the money. But you got to like bring like the personality, and you got to make it. People walk by. You got to like hoot and holler. And I was like, that sounds like fun. So then all of a sudden, I was getting hired by like a college would have a beer fest, or somebody would have a beer fest. I was driving around the country signing cookbooks. I mean, with a box like Nike, with a big box of books in the back. And it's funny. So I loved it, and that's when I realized. Well, I love the wall safes. I love the alarm business because they're residual in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, like I have builders that just call and order a wall safe. Like it's just we do a certain amount every month, and it's just like residual income. So then I'm a big vodka guy. Like I like martinis.
Yeah, that's what
I was like, so how do I get like into like the spirits world? So I started investigating it, and I realized that like it's not the hardest thing in the world to like jump into a liquor business. I went with the idea that Denver Distillery was a distillery a friends of mine owned, and I went down and talked to him, and I said, hey, I want to make a great vodka, 100% gluten-free, plant-based, sustainable, for a great price. And I said, what I feel is out there right now is so many people selling me. They don't put the money in the product, but man, they put the money in the marketing. And I mean, you see that with a lot of like the big celebrities coming in, not staying in the lane and getting, selling their brands. But like when I see a company put all their money in their marketing, I worry about the product. And I was like, well, how hard would it be to start with a plant-based, like, potatoes gluten-free. Tito's is gluten removed. There's a difference between gluten-free and gluten removed. And a lot of people who like, let's say Grey Goose made from wheat. That isn't, they're like, oh, it's gluten-free. I'm like, is it? Because I don't know that, I mean, how is that possible? And they're like, oh, they distill it out. And I go, which part of the process does it distill out in? And they're like, it just gets so hot. And I go, well, I cook my bread at 450, but it's still got gluten in it. So I go, the problem is that there's no guarantee. They can get to about 98% to try to filter or burn or whatever the distilling process is to get the gluten out. And I said, why are we having this conversation? I want to be gluten-free, not gluten removed.
Right.
So start with sugarcane, because there's so much of it, and it's just such a neat product because it's so clean. So I was like, so I'm sitting there with Denver Distillery, and I said, look, I want to make this vodka. And they go, no. I go, yes. And they go, no, we're not.
Why were they saying no? Like
they because they thought, because I remember the owner goes, I feel like you just want to go on dates. And look up and point at your vodka and go, that's my vodka. This guy's named Ron. I love him. And I go, yes. I go, that's exactly what I want. No, I go, I'm just kidding. I actually go, you know what? I go, there's room in this market, but it's a huge market. I go, there's room. I go, there's plastic bottle vodka, there's mid-range vodka, and there's high-end vodka. And I said, I feel like it's time for another high-end vodka to come on board like Tito's did and shake things up. And I said, let's invest the money on the product. Costs a little bit more for sugarcane than it does potatoes, trust me. It costs a lot more than corn. And again, this gets back to me. I've always believed this. I want to be successful. I do believe that money will follow success, but I really like creating stuff and I really want to be successful in what I do. And I was like, guys, and they had these notes. This is a true story. I said, you make me a bottle of vodka. Or will you make me vodka? I'll figure out all of it. I said, I guarantee. I go, how many counts do you have? And they go, like 35. I go, okay. Make me the vodka. I will have 100 by the end of the year. And I said, not only that, I said, my very first account will be Hillstone. Everybody laughed. Everybody at the table. Like,
what is Hillstone?
Hillstone is a restaurant in Denver that's like a national chain. They got 27.
Okay.
It's a steakhouse, but it's not a steakhouse. It's just high-end, like traditional great food. And they've got one, well, Cherry Creek Grill is the same family. The White House at Aspen, which also sells my vodka. So, and they laughed because they thought that was funny because they've been out trying to sell their vodka and gin. They had their own line, and they know how hard it is. And everybody laughed, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But they wrote that down. They've brought those notes out since then to go, do you remember when you said your first account would be Hillstone? I'm like, yeah. They go, it was. What's funny is, so we started making this vodka. And I was like, we're tasting vodka. And one day we came down to 4. And I finally, on the third one, I was like, that's the stuff. I mean, that's the flavor. We just kept grooming. And the neat thing about our vodka is, like I said, we filter the water before. And then we make it, and then we filter it again through 15 feet of charcoal. Now, that takes away that college vodka smell and, like, that hotness. So I know you don't drink, but I'm going to tell you. I can tell you what I want now because you don't drink.
You can do whatever you want. It's your liver, my man.
It is martini in a bottle.
Okay, so, all right. Stop there for a second. If you're putting all of your money into the product, how are you marketing the vodka?
So that's it. So, like, let's say The Rock comes out with his...
The Rock.
The Meduna or something tequila, or let's say one of these celebrities gets into the business. They'll develop a product, but they'll use their namesake, and they'll go, like, basically investors will say, you can have 10% or 20% of the company, no money in.
Yeah.
But you'll make you a partner, but we're going to use your likeness and your name and whatnot. And then they'll spend $20 million to launch that product because they know there's even on their Twitter, their Facebook, they already have a built-in following.
Yeah, that's different. That's celebrity stuff.
So so my point is, so I was like, well, first of all, I own an alarm company. I do the security for every restaurant in town.
Right.
And I do a good job. And so, like, I have a lot of friends. And over the years, like, Denver's been so good to me. I make friends easy. I like talking to people. I enjoy people. I just felt like if I could make this great product, I could get back into the action, like the cookbook. Remember when I was talking about signing the cookbooks? Yeah. I was just hustling. People were walking down the road, and I'll be like, hey, you taste this. This is, if you're in the vodka aisle, this is good. No, actually, it's great. Like it's like, it's really smooth. This gets back to another thing. It's fun to sell a good product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've sold dog shit. But this is aces.
You believe in that. You believe.
And when people taste it, I look at them and I go,
yeah.
And they go, and we look at each other, we go,
yeah.
And they go, we get it. And I go, you want me to sign that bottle? And they're like, all right. And they're like, why? I go, that's fine. I'm Streeter Flynn. They're like, oh.
Ooh.
Like, or just like, they're just like, that's cool. Like, but you're here. And I'm like, and I'll be at Bonnie Bray Liquors tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll be at, I'll be signing bottles.
So is that your marketing? Like,
no. Okay. So our marketing is, like I said, I call it Grassroots Organic Gladiator Sales. Gladiator was a term they'd use for, like, the guys who sold copy machines. And,
I didn't know that.
Yes. So it was funny when I was in college, and for that short stint, like, I had friends getting interviewed by, like, Xerox, like, to go get jobs. And they make, like, I remember, like, my roommate came back. He's like, Xerox just offered me $38,000 a year. And I go, dude, it's like $3,000 a month. What are you going to do with all that? Like, we're living on $200 a month. Like, I mean, that's when you could leave the house with a $5 bill and you'd be all right. You could still get a Subway and a drink, I remember being blown away. He was getting paid $36,000, and I was like, all right. But Gladiator sales is, that's a tough sell. You're selling a copy machine. Yeah. You're walking in, you're knocking, it's cold calling. You're just like, hey, they got to make this sale. Like, feast or famine, I sell the copy machine, I get paid. I get an idea, and I go, let's go do that. Yeah. And then we go do that. In fact, what's interesting is I really haven't had a lot of no's. I've gotten it in almost every place I've wanted to. I mean, you name a restaurant, we're at Ellie's, we're at Shanahan's, we're at Washburn Grill, we're at Reaver's, we're at Cuba Cuba, we're at Rioja, we're at Bistro Von Dom. We're at the airport. We're at Steve Seven Dogs. We're at all three of the United concierge. Like, what I'm saying is, every time I go out on a sale, it's funny because I got picked up by the third largest distributor. And this is what they said to me. So the third largest distributor in America calls me. And he's like, hey, this is Andrew with RNDC. And I know who they are. I don't know him. He goes, I'm in Dallas. We were up having dinner with my staff, and we were at Shanahan's, and we saw your bottle. I was like, bring the bottle over, let me see it. And then we started researching, and we noticed that you're in like a lot of like top tier restaurants. I go, I'm in all of them. And he goes, yeah, no, we saw that. He goes, would you have 2 hours to talk to me on Friday? And I was like, I will. I do.
Wow.
Yes, I know. So took him to Machete's where they had my bottle. And I said, I want you to taste it. Because here's the thing. I actually sold cars when I was in college. And my boss, Mark Heitz, was like, you ever bring anybody back to finance and they haven't driven the car, I'll fire you. He goes, I will not sell anybody a car they haven't driven. And I was like, yeah. I go, that stuck with me.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm like, wow. So I will not... I guess, don't you bring anybody back that has not
It's really
test drove the
wise
car.
advice, don't you think?
Well, then they're vested. If you haven't driven the car, they can walk out of finance. Like, there's so much to that. You think on that a little later and say, like, he goes, don't you dare, I'll fire you if you bring somebody back to finance that has not test driven that car. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it makes more and more sense every day. And so they said, here's the deal. We don't care who you're with now. They go, but we're not leaving this table until you sign with us. And I was like, okay. So we started talking, kind of negotiating out a deal, and what they could bring. Well, RNDC has 122 reps in the state that are out selling your product. They've got logistics. They've got, it's the whole kit and caboodle. So anyway, that took a little bit more pressure off of me just out doing sales. So then all of a sudden I was able to like get into what's called branding or growing your brand.
Right.
And it has been like I think I've been selling this branding it like 2.5 years. There was a period like when I decided to just I jumped around, but I just one day said, I'll make this vodka because once the people said we'll make the vodka, I had to go home and order up 20, 30 bottles and just look at them.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden your kitchen becomes your
lab.
Yeah. And I'm just and Brenna's there and we're like really jazzed up and we're looking at caps and then there's this seal. That's a whole. This right here has a cost. Take the liquid out. Glass has a cost. This label, it's called a front label. It has a cost. Back label has a cost. Someone has to write that. Someone has to design this. There's a cap. It has a cost. This little seal is 7 cents. So it's called bottle cost. But anyway, so all that has to be figured out. And this right here, it's called a barcode. Got to figure that out too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we were in the deep water.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's where you want to be because it's like, this is exciting. Like,
yeah,
this
because
is happening.
you have a hand and a say in every part of your product, right? Like it's soulful, I think, for you because it is so much the essence of your personality, right? The label, the process, the branding, the hanging out at, bars, the meeting people, the networking. And I want to ask you in closing, I mean, you've been very generous with your time, first of all. But one of the, when you are successful like you are, right? And you have assumed a lot of risk, right? Like this is just how it is with entrepreneurs, right? That you are the driver, the force, the engine behind your products and your business, your personality. With that, when you put yourself out there, you're going to get a lot of criticism. And you do, right? You take your fair amount of trolls and haters. And, it's a fear factor for a lot of entrepreneurs because it's hard when people are mean to you. But you always have responded in graceful ways. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how you handle, the haters.
I'll give you the short and long answer.
Okay.
One, I ignore it. And, but two, sometimes things don't go my way. And I'm like, I think that like, not everybody wants to see you be successful.
Yeah.
I want to be successful.
Yeah.
So I've got blinders on and I keep those blinders because that just keeps me on the path. But I mean, occasionally, like you'll meet somebody who or they're saying something because I talked to somebody it's not jealousy by any means. It's just like I think sometimes people like are turned off by people who are trying to do something.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're not.
Yeah.
But like I'm lucky enough that I've got these projects that I'm working on, and I just love it so much that I just like it's like I told somebody this the other day. I go, oh, my brother was like, oh. He's like, I said, oh, I'm going to King Soopers. We just got into King Soopers, all their accounts in Colorado. It's a big deal. I'm going to go down and do a signing. I call it a signing because I sign the bottles. I just do. I kid you not. Somebody buys one that I taste it. I just start writing my name on it. They're like, what's this about? I go, that's me.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah.
They go, do 2. I go, I do 2, I'll do 3. So anyway, so he goes, you have to go down to King Soopers and do a signing. I go, no. I don't have to. I get to. So, I'm just fortunate enough that this is the funnest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And so when I hear backlash or people like, whenever somebody's a naysayer or just bringing you down, it's wasted energy.
Yeah.
Wasted energy to just to try to confront it because I can't do anything about how people feel. I just know this. I'm doing something pretty awesome. I'm really proud of it. And what are you going to do? I mean, as long as people have mouths, they've used them.
Yeah.
So whatever. I mean, look at this.
It really is beautiful, beautiful packaging.
It's gorgeous.
And thank you so much for coming out here and talking with us and really sharing, making it really real and telling your story and not holding back. Really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Honestly, this is my job.